Heartbeat Alaska is brought to you in part by Coca-Cola.
By Cook Inlet Region Incorporated, an Alaska Native corporation promoting economic and social progress for people throughout the state.
By the generous support of the Alaska Native Health Board.
Welcome to Heartbeat Alaska. I'm Jeannie Green, bringing you Native news across the north. Thank you for joining us. Today we visit Kalskag, a spirit camp 2 or 3 miles from that village. We have news briefs from all around the state. The Alaska Native Health Board interview is with us again this week, and Walker interviews Larry Merculieff. Gary Fife, of course, is with us as usual, but before we begin, I'd like to welcome our viewers from Fairbanks over KUAC TV. Thank you so much for joining us. We begin now with Gary Fife and National Native News.
Thanks, Jeannie. This is National Native News. I'm Gary Fife. Health officials in New Mexico believe there are 2 new possible victims of the mysterious disease that has killed at least 11 people in the Southwest. Health officials are working to find the cause, and they suspect rodent droppings from animals such as prairie dogs or pack rats as the likely sources. Tribal officials are cautioning local residents to avoid contact with those animals and their burrows. They add the latest death may take weeks to confirm. The last speaker of the vanishing Alaska Dena'ina language, an accomplished writer and storyteller, passed away last weekend. Peter Kalifornsky, a member of the Kanaitsi tribe, died at the age of 81 after a long illness. He was revered as one of the living repositories of the native languages and cultures of tribes on the Kenai Peninsula. He was a recipient of the Alaska Humanities Award and garnered other national recognition as well. He was returned to the earth this week near his family at a traditional graveyard. Services were held in Kenai. An organization called Union, or United Now Indian Olympic Nation, has been pursuing the idea of fielding an all-native team for the International Olympic Games. Union is hoping to field its team by the 1996 Summer Games and compete in 11 sports. Matt Spencer, an advisor with the group, says natives have a long history in sports and the Olympics, and recalled names like Jim Thorpe of the Sac and Fox tribe and Billy Mills of the Oglala Sioux. Both were gold medal winners. Union is run by a 5-member Native Executive Council and has attracted about 1,000 Native athletes as members. But Spencer says they submitted a charter to the International Olympic Committee and they were rejected. He says several U.S. territories such as American Samoa, Guam, and the Virgin Islands field teams, so Native Americans should be able to also. Union is based at the Fort Mojave Reservation in California. Alaska Native leaders think the state should have its own Native college, much like other tribal community colleges in the lower 48 states. During a meeting of the Alaska Native Foundation, President Emil Nadi announced the group has applied for funds from the administration for Native Americans to fund the idea. Supporters say the plan could answer the problems of keeping natives in college and giving them more education that pertains to their history, culture, and language. And finally, he might have been joking, but then again, he might not. Austin Nunez, chairman of the San Javier Reservation of the Tohono O'odham tribe in Arizona, recently teased the Tucson City Council about setting up a toll booth and charging motorists for use of 1 mile of road that runs across their lands. He said the tribe felt it was not being compensated properly for allowing such rights of way and other uses. Local county officials are searching for the documents they say granted them access, but if they don't find them, one commissioner says, then we'll have to do it properly. This is National Native News, and for Heartbeat Alaska, I'm Gary Fife.
May I help you, sir?
Yeah, I'll have a Coca-Cola.
You sure you want a Coke?
Yeah, I want a Coke.
Okay, pal.
You order a Coke? It tastes good.
I didn't care if it was a Coke. You just want to
I'll just have a cola. I'll just have a cola. I'll just have a cola.
Something to drink, sir?
I'll just have a...
You'll just have a...
I'll just have a Coke.
Ooh.
Hear that, guys? A Coca-Cola. See ya, pal. Oh!
Nukat pe ako ba sa balrutin itiguga kamutin sa balan. Inyo niya kalwa kapta sulinibut sa bagalwa tangar mata ilwa haluktula suribut. Agalan tabar timibut ekayok tikak tukralirman siraanak tuk siniyak tilaklamik. Sa baluti kakalwak tuk ikayu taularuanik inyong montpiliwit chomon. Kukula lugu 800-770-0138 ilitsuri ulik iliginik inyula silutin ilikun.
Spirit Days is underway. This annual Native celebration attracts thousands of people every year, including dance groups from all over the state. Spirit Days 93 got underway Thursday night with a bang, or more correctly, with a drum beat. The Tlingit Haida Dancers of Anchorage welcomed the Sitka Nuclean Dancers. For those at the airport Thursday evening, the Alaska Native welcome was an unexpected delight, a sight rarely equaled in any other airport around the world.
If you have news or information from your village or community, please call Heartbeat Alaska, area code 907-563-3507, or fax 907-563-7079.
This time of year, some Alaska Natives go to camp, fish camp, while still others go to a different kind of camp, spirit camp. Today we visit a spirit camp 2 miles above the Yupik village of Kalskag.
And we'd like to thank our ancestors for letting us survive and for teaching us the way of life.
Last weekend, 3 adults and 30 youngsters honored that way of life. Under the direction of Marge Borodko and Sister Sue, they formed a community and named it Moose Village. Moose Village was divided up into small family units where the youngsters learned to care for each other and for others. This family was preparing rhubarb for dessert for the whole community. Sharing and helping others was just one of the lessons of the camp. Moose Village became an environment where all the youngsters felt totally accepted. On this island, away from the hardships of everyday life, freedom made way for healing. Part of this healing was finding the spirit from within, becoming close to Mother Nature and the Creator. I'd like to thank Willie Pitka and David Doris for the video. We'll be back with more from Heartbeat Alaska right after these messages.
Is to use an analogy. I mean, it's like, with these kinds of situations, it's very much like going out in the street and playing Russian roulette.
Атуриукнарпут юуллам ниаасикилутан чалинеритааqa такииттухтлахиаaqaput тахуан таммавутикаажориугааққан чапарсулартукут натмун чауллеркамнун икааюутстан қалартоқ тассиигалнгорнун ниугнаақллерианун қаяагауқиу 800-770-0138 таақналлунеривсаариукуув тикааюутнак.
Hi, my name is Ray Bocatch, and I'm from Togiak, and I never miss watching Heartbeat Alaska at 6:30 on RatNet.
Sewage waste disposal is the #1 environmental problem in rural Alaska. Ann Walker discusses this with Larry Merculieff in today's Alaska Native Health Board interview.
We're talking today with Larry Merculieff, who's the chairman of the Rural Sanitation Task Force, the Alaska Rural Sanitation Task Force. Last fall, the Sanitation Task Force came out with a report that called for specific actions to improve rural sewer and water systems in Alaska.
For people who don't understand, I mean, I guess the best way I can explain this to people in the urban settings is to use an analogy. I mean, it's like, with these kinds of situations, it's very much like going out in the street and playing Russian roulette. I mean, each day that a person in these villages with these atrocious sanitation conditions take a drink of water, or have to dispose of their own sewage, they're putting a gun to their head, and you don't know when the bullet's going to go off.
Larry, what exactly has happened since that task force report came out, and what kind of response are you getting from the various agencies?
Senator Murkowski and Senator Inouye in the Indian Select Subcommittee conducted a hearing where people came in, particularly people from the villages. I think that was the most important point, actually describing the conditions out there. And I think it really perked up Senator Inouye, and he's starting to really move on this, as is our congressional delegation. And EPA has now acknowledged that rural sanitation is Alaska's #1 environmental health problem, so that now flags it as a major point for the federal administration. They've agreed to coordinate all the federal agencies to try to get together, pool their resources, maybe coordinate a lot better than they have, and make their programs more accessible to the villages, because a lot of villages don't have the resources to have to tap into a zillion different programs with 15 or 20 different federal agencies. It's just not possible. So what we're trying to do is pull this together. And so we had a meeting at the high policy level in Washington, D.C. With all these agencies, with policymakers, to decide, is it possible for the agencies to work together, and what can we do about it? So they've agreed to get a working group together in the field right away to figure out actions they can take immediately, and then what actions the federal agencies can do for the long term. So then we followed up and had that meeting here just the other day with all these different federal agencies. And the state legislatures also passed a joint resolution supporting the task force report and a federal-state partnership. And Bob Foote from Unalakleet has been working on getting all these petitions from the villages. And we want to continue to encourage getting these signatures on these petitions because nothing speaks louder than the voice of the people.
So who in the villages has these petitions?
Well, it's given to all the different organizations in the communities, and so if you ask around, it's hit 100 villages, or we got petitions from 100 villages. We need, and not everyone has signed them, so we need to try to get as many signatures as we possibly can. If you just ask around, people will know.
Mm-hmm. Are there specific commitments, fiscal commitments from Congress and the legislature that are follow-ups to what the task force has recommended?
Well, that's what we're looking for. We want increased funding and increased program support. On the state level, we have $26 million this fiscal year that was specifically dedicated to the Village Safe Water Program, although the total amount available for water and sewer is about $40 million. And just recently, our congressional delegation was able to get a supplemental for the fiscal year '93, totaling $39 million, of which $3.9 million could be made available this year. But it still has to go to a conference committee, so it's not quite there, but everyone thinks it's probably going to get through. So that'll deal with immediate emergency type problems. But our long-term goal is to try to make sure we get stable levels of funding over the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. And we're looking at a lot of money, from $600 million to $1 billion. Mm-hmm. But we think we can do it. One of the things that is going to help is that now the Safe Water for All Alaskans Coalition has been formed. And this coalition is composed of many different groups and a lot of private businesses in the urban areas that now recognize this as a major problem and they want to help us out. And this is going to be a political action group to keep people's hands to the fire and focused on this thing and trying to increase the funding levels.
What can our viewers in rural Alaska do to begin thinking about what role they can play in making sure that we really begin to solve the problems that we have for poor water and poor sewer conditions that exist?
I think that's a good question. Right now, we've got 17 federal and state agencies at the table trying to work out what they can do. But they can only go halfway. The other half has got to be from the villages. The people in the villages have to start thinking about what kind of commitment can they give to this effort. In addition to the petitions that they've signed, can they help us with the political things and getting letters into congressmen and senators, helping us raise money. And they also have to prepare themselves. One of the things that we're going to try to do is I think people are beginning to recognize now that they can't make decisions from the outside about a village. The village people themselves have to tell these folks what needs to be done and how it should be done. Mm-hmm. So they have to start, people in the villages should start thinking about that. What do they need in their community and how should it be done? And at some point in time, somebody's going to be going out there asking those questions.
Good. Today we've been talking with Larry Merculieff, who is the chairman of the Rural Sanitation Task Force, who has recently published a report. And there's a lot of action going on in both the federal and the state arenas. And Mr. Merculieff has been very active in making sure that we follow up on these recommendations. For Heartbeat Alaska and Alaska Native Health Board, I'm Ann Walker.
Once again, I'd like to say hello to our new Fairbanks viewers. They're watching Heartbeat Alaska over KUAC TV. Thank you very much for joining us. And speaking of that television station, they helped produce the clip that we're showing of the Caribou People.
The people here are known for their hospitality. That when people, it's a pride of the people, it always has been, that when people come to visit them, they go out of their way to make them feel at home and to entertain and feed them.
There is a summer youth program for the teens in Arctic Village, teaching them the traditional dances and customs so that they can entertain the tourists and help to preserve their cultural heritage for another generation. The Gwich'in believe that they have something valuable to teach the rest of the world about respect for the elders, for the traditions, and for the environment.
They still try to live, our elder used to live, strong cultures. They taught me so many things and taught to me how to live good lives and stuff like that. And about that world too, small world. And they're telling us about the land out there and resource. They always tell us about not to shoot that animal you don't need and not to catch a fish you don't need. And if you do that, and you just try to fight against the natures.
Our people never put themselves above any animals or plants. We are just part of the whole cycle, the whole situation. And so what happens to the woods, to the animals, pretty much dictates what happens to us.
And us Indian people, we protect the environment, and in order to take care of us, and that's the education we want to share, and we think it's important to the world.
Trimble Gilbert, the chief of the village, is also the Episcopalian minister. His church services are in Gwich'in. It is part of the effort to teach the children their native language.
Just like my mother told me, she taught the Indian language, but strong words she uses, shijut saltik, kunzi etak anti, that means that's my language. Son, take care of yourself out there. And no matter where I travel, I still remember it. Get deep into my heart.
And travelers into Arctic Village will surely remember the Gwich'in deep into their hearts.
They enjoy seeing the scenery. And they told us about it. And all the animals they see and fish and all that good water they drink. And, you know, this is a small planet we live on now, and because the population is increasing. So we just try to save a small area up there for the futures, not only for the native people, for the non-native, you know, to enjoy that, to see those country up there. And those kind of people, we want to make them happy. They can always remember us too, in a way. Friendship, you know.
We aired only a portion of the Caribou People. which was produced by the Cooperative Extension Service, University of Alaska Fairbanks. Let's turn now to Barrow and find out what Elise Patkotak has for us this week.
The look is back. It's the look that says, I've had fresh cooked muktuk and I feel great. After a crew lands a whale here, the captain's wife, the wives of the crew members, and just about anyone else who volunteers to help spend the next 24 hours cutting and cooking so that they can serve a meal to the town. It's an awesome concept, feeding hundreds of people out of a small kitchen in your house. For hours, these men and women saw and cut and boil and bake. The first serving is usually done at lunch the day after the whale has been killed and butchered. People are sometimes lined up around the block waiting to get in and get their share. After a long, cold winter, the first taste of boiled muktuk is irresistible. The first time I ever went to a captain's house, I'd only been in town a few weeks. The public health nurse invited me to follow her. I was appalled. I had just arrived from New York City. New York is not the kind of place where you drop in uninvited, even if you know the people. And this lady wanted me to follow her to the home of strangers and eat their food. I arrived at the captain's house to be greeted by a line that wound around the block and back again. Kids were running and playing in the yard. Ski-doos made multiple entrances and exits as they brought more of the whale in from the beach. It was a scene of jubilantly organized chaos, and I was taken in and accepted as part of it as though I had lived there for 100 years. The only time I was treated differently was when the servers made a special effort to explain to me what I was eating, or make sure I had enough tea and had found the pot with boiling fruit. Nowhere in the highest society New York had to offer could I find more gracious and warm manners. I think it was around then that I stopped feeling quite so homesick for New York and started thinking that maybe this Alaskan thing hadn't been such a bad idea after all. Since I'm still here 20 years later, I guess I was right.
Thank you, Elise, and thank you for joining me. I'm Jeannie Green for Heartbeat Alaska, bringing you Native news across the North. I'd like to welcome my Fairbanks viewers to send in video and stories, or give me a call at area code 907-563-3507. Also, my Canadian viewers, I would really like some news from Canada. As for the rest of the state, I am looking for 4th of July stories and also stories on fish camps. I'll see you next week. For Heartbeat Alaska, I'm Jeannie Green.